Hey everyone, so this is SVU, season 18, episode 3, called Imposter. Um, and the episode, kind of starts off with the husband and a wife discussing, what they're gonna do, in the future or something. It sounded like it was business at first, but I think it was something else now. But anyway, so the husband and the son are, walking out the door, and then once they do, the wife, she makes a phone call about seeing someone soon. And next thing you know, she's having sex with this guy who isn't her husband. Um, I thought it was at home, but from what I can tell later on, it was a hotel room. And after having sex, she's waiting outside the shower. Um, Later, Rollins and Carisi go to the hotel room because the woman, Laura Collette, that we saw earlier, overdosed possibly, and the guy who was an outcry witness received two texts from her. The first was that sex that she had was the best she has ever had, and the second was that he raped her and he deserves to burn in hell. Um, Back at the station, Rollins then reveals she overdosed on lorazepam and alcohol, and there was no date rape drugs in her system. So Rollins and Carisi go back to the hospital to question the husband. At the hospital, the husband is confused as to why they're there, so they explain that she accused someone of rape and then they ask when the last time he saw her, like the previous day, and everything. Then they, go back to the station, find video footage of Laura and a guy walking in the hotel. So Rollins, has to go back to the hotel to see if anybody knows anything. Long story short, she doesn't. At least I don't think she did. I don't remember her saying that she did. And as Rollins goes do that, Benson's upset about Noah because is not on the same level of speaking and language as his peers and everything, even though he's like in preschool or kindergarten or something. So he's not all that. He's just not speaking, even though even though she talks, reads, sings, or sings to Noah. He's just not speaking all that well like his peers are. So she's concerned about that. When Finn comes in and tells her that there was no semen in the rape kit, but there was condom lubricant. Her son had sent her a message telling her to go die. So Carisi goes back to the hospital to ask Justin about that. At the hospital, Carisi finds out that Justin was just tired of her meddling in his college applications and the college process that he's going through at the moment. And he mentions that there's this admissions counselor, admissions guy who Laura had been talking to that would get him into Hudson, but she didn't mention a name, so they kind of had to figure that out. Back at the station, Rollins finds out a guy named Alden Kessler went to the hotel the exact same time as Laura, and it happens to be he happens to be the same guy who's director of admissions at Hudson. So they go to Hudson, Rollins, Creasy do, and question him at the university. But they find out that the guy in the photo isn't the guy that Rollins and Creasy are meeting. The guy in the photos is a white dude who's like 30s or 40s ish. The guy that Rollins and Creasy are in the office of is black. So clearly the guy in the photos is pretending to be the guy, pretending to be the admissions counselor, or the director of the admissions counselors. So they, want to know, as per usual, if anybody he knows would, impersonate him. He doesn't, obviously. And he's like, well, this mother, Laura, has a son, has her son Justin, who's just thousands of, of average white kids who have all the credentials to get into Hudson. Is just, there's about 2,000 other students just like him who have the same exact credentials, but we can only admit 400 of those 2,000 people. So, I mean, that's a concern, or that's something that the admissions council brings up. Then he is asked by Rollins if he has ever gotten any offers to have sex with a parent of a potential student, in exchange for him admitting their child, or having a child have a better chance at getting admitted. And he's like, yeah, I've gotten offers, I just never taken it up. Rollins then gets a text saying Laura's awake. So Benson goes over there, questions her, and she's like, I met this dude at the campus cafe, and she explains, like, he came up to me and told me that he was an admissions counselor, and so Benson asks the obvious question, why it went from best sex he's ever had to accusing him of rape in the span of 10 minutes. And she says that she found out he wasn't the real Kessler because he mixed up a statistic, or he messed up a number that the website, I guess, put on there about the endowment. And he said a completely different number. Like, the endowment is supposed to be $13 billion or something like that, and this fake Kessler guy said that the endowment was $9 billion. So that got her suspicious, and so she saw via a professor's Instagram page that he wasn't the real Kessler, and so she said she called him. He laughed at her. He hung up. Tried to call him back, and he wouldn't answer. So she sent the text saying, "You raped me. Go burn in hell." Benson then says, since she didn't really know the true identity of the man she had sex with, she didn't consent to the real person, so she considers it rape. Finn then said that doesn't, like, back at the station, Finn's like, I don't really think it's rape. But Benson says, yeah, she was, because she thought she was having sex with a real Kessler, and she didn't consent to having sex with a person posing as Kessler. Creasy shows that the guy pretending to be Kessler used some of Kessler's stationery, so the guy had access to Kessler's office. So Creasy and Rollins go back to Hudson to figure out who the guy is. Turns out this guy, his name is, or before I get to that, as Rollins and Creasy are, walking to wherever they're going to, which I think is campus security or something like that, or I don't know, wherever. She's like, well, yeah, it's disgusting and everything, but it's not. I don't consider it rape. That's what she said. Personally, at first I was more thinking of Rollins on this, but now that I've had time to think about it and stuff, I really don't think I'm more on the side of Benson, because it's one thing to lie it's like it's one thing to lie and everything, but he's purposely telling these women that he's the director of admissions at Hudson and that he will pretty much guarantee that their child will get into Hudson if they have sex with him. So that, I mean, he's purposely like, I mean, it's one thing to say that it's one thing to lie and say that you're from LA and you're an aspiring artist or actress when you're really not. That's one thing. That is completely separate and different. It's another when you purposely tell people who are so ready and willing to do anything to get the child into this particular college that you're an admissions counselor there and you will be more than willing to make sure that the child gets into that particular college. It's completely different because you're deliberately misleading them to think that they're getting something in return when they're not. So I mean, it's just no, I can't condone that at all. I can't. I mean, there's what Rollins was, painting in that particular scenario, particular scene when they were walking across Hudson is completely different, on a completely different level than what the fake Kessler was doing. That's completely different. They're on two totally separate different levels, and I personally think that Benson's right on this. So Rollins and Creasy meet up with this guy who works there and reveals that the man who's pretending to be Kessler, his name is Tom Metcalf, who works as in campus security and was hired like 2 months before. And so they go try and find him, and they find him trying to seduce another woman into the false identity of him being Tom Metcalf, or Kessler, sorry. So they bring him back to the station, and he says he did lie, but he didn't do anything wrong, obviously. And he pretty much admits that he's done this before when he worked at a hospital and picked up how the doctors talked. Same bullshit, different scenario. Same bullshit, different location. So Creasy asks the burning question of if Laura actually said yes to Tom, the actual identity of the guy, or to the admission to what she thought was an admissions counselor, who said that they would admit her son if she slept with him. He leaves without answering the question. And Barbara's like, well, it sounds like rape by fraud, but it's not in law yet. And and Benson's all upset about that. It's like it should be in law. I mean, yeah, that's true, but I mean, just law is very slow in trying to get things up to date, which especially sexual assault stuff. So, yeah. Barbara then says that there's this law being brought up in legislature that the case could help kickstart, or whatever. I mean, I guess I should have looked. I mean, I don't know if that's really a thing, if that's really what's happening in New York right now, New York State or anything, but I don't know. At Metcalf's apartment, Rollins finds a card and a portfolio of a potential student's work. She figures he's having the parents send in students' portfolios, and the card, the woman named Erin is supposed to meet him at a fancy hotel apartment that day, because it was sent the previous day, but their meeting is supposed to be that day. And so Benson and Finn go to the apartment hotel place, and Metcalf says he stays in another person's place from time to time. So they run in, so they run into Metcalf as he's coming out of the elevator, and he just got finished having sex with that Erin woman. So after he leaves, Benson and Finn go upstairs and try to get her to testify to the fact that, like Laura, he came up to her in the college cafe, but she doesn't want to because it's. I don't think she really said it in as many words, but I felt like what she was trying to say was that because she agreed to have sex with him, that it wouldn't look too kindly on her for having agreed to do that. So that's why she doesn't want to do it. That's why she doesn't want to. That's why she doesn't want to testify. Back at the station, Benson finds out that the guy who owns the apartment doesn't know Metcalf at all. Not that surprising, seeing as how he pretty much lied about everything else about his identity to these women. So it's not that far of a stretch to hear that the guy who he was supposedly sharing the apartment with from time to time doesn't know him at all. Finn reveals that Metcalf videotaped the people he defrauded, or supposedly. Benson then shows the video to Barbara. Barbara asks if they had identified everyone in the video. Benson's like, yeah, we did, but everyone besides Laura doesn't want to testify. So they bring Metcalf back and denies that he had anything to do with the videotape. Barbara is willing to talk about a deal, sexual assault in the 3rd degree, if he pleads to it, but he denies it, so Benson arrests him. Benson then tells Laura that about it. And her son comes in and is like giving them the cold shoulder and everything, and he's not that happy about everything. So Laura at first doesn't seem that wanting to do it because she felt she was pretty much humiliated about everything, but then she decides to do it anyway. So that he feels just as humiliated. At trial, Metcalf's lawyer tries to tell that there's no proof he actually recorded them having sex. That Laura is the only complainant to. So the other videos besides hers shouldn't be used, and the judge allows that. So only Laura's videos are allowed to be used in the trial. Later, outside, the judge is upset with Barbara for using the case as a backing for a bill, and in a roundabout way tells Barbara to dismiss the case. Barbara doesn't, obviously. So in opening arguments, Barbara questions Laura, or after opening arguments, he questions Laura, but then Metcalf's attorney asks if that would make Laura a prostitute, her, accepting sex in exchange for guaranteeing her child admission. And then Metcalf's lawyer tries to make it sound like Laura didn't have a problem with having sex with Tom or bringing up the first text and not the second. But that in turn makes Barbara bring up the second text in re-examination. So then Metcalf's lawyer calls the doorman of where Laura and Metcalf had sex, and Barbara's like, this guy's not on the original witness list, why is he there? And Metcalf's lawyer's like, well, Laura called Tom by his real name, so Barbara's theory of rape because of not consenting to Tom is not valid. Then Laura tells Benson and Barbara that she only had sex with Metcalf the once, because Metcalf's lawyer was trying to sell that they had sex multiple times. And she didn't know his real name until after they had sex. And she fears that he will get away with it, which is, a valid fear. So they find out that the doorman and Metcalf went to high school together. So, and they find out that the doorman was a manager at another hotel, and he was fired for putting a camera in the woman's restroom. So Christy wants to lie to the doorman about finding prints and DNA on the videotape, or video recorder. So they pretty much do that and pretty much successfully get him to not testify on Metcalf's behalf, saying that he heard Laura call Tom by his real name. Metcalf's lawyer then doesn't call the doorman as a witness, and so Barbara agrees to a lesser charge because the judge basically threatened to overturn the verdicts. So Benson goes to tell Laura of it herself, but once Benson gets there, there's police and paramedics there, and inside, Benson finds that Laura's son Justin appears to have jumped off the balcony of their place and killed himself. It appears that way. I don't know for sure because they don't really explain what actually happened. It's just, assumed that's what happened. So that's pretty much the whole episode. Next week on SVU, it's looking like a star athlete is sexually assaulted and that she's a prostitute on the side. Regardless if that's true or not, even if she is a prostitute, she has the autonomy to say when she wants to have sex and when she doesn't. If she didn't want to have sex at the time, that's fine. That's her right. If she started out wanting to have sex but then changed her mind, that's completely fine too. If she doesn't want to have sex anymore, that's her prerogative. She doesn't have to continue on having sex just because a guy is hard and his junk is all stiff and shit. That's not her problem. If she doesn't want to have sex anymore, that's what she wants to, that's her right to not do it. I mean, if he wants to not have sex, he can just jerk the fuck off, and that's the end of that. I mean, it's the same result. Just because you're not releasing it inside of a girl doesn't mean that it's any different than when you jerk off by yourself. I mean, come the fuck on, really. Anyway, I don't really have too many predictions for this next episode. Possibly he will be convicted. Possibly what will happen is I'm thinking maybe he will the guy who did this will end up getting hurt or killed in the end, because it's looking like he might get off for sexual assaulting this girl. Who knows? Because I don't think they really have had an episode lately where a person was sexually assaulted by a guy and it's looking like the guy will get off and the guy ends up hurt or killed because it's looking like he's gonna get off. I don't know if that's what's gonna happen. I mean, because they haven't had a case like, or an episode like that in a while, so maybe that's what's gonna happen. I don't know. Who knows? Excuse me. But that's really all I'm thinking might happen. Because it's looking like it's a standard episode to me, so I don't know. With that said, don't hesitate to drop a comment in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next week in SVU. And hit like if you like this episode, hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you then. Bye.